How's it going, everyone? Doom Bandit here, and welcome to the first episode of Hearthstats, Heroes of RNG, where we try to break down the statistics of particular cards so you don't have to. The first card I want to go over in this episode is Babbling Book, and this is a 1-mana 1/1 battle cry. Add a random mage spell to your hand. Now, the reason I want to start with this card is because it's from the new adventure, One Night at Karazhan, and I'm very excited to see this come out. I'm very excited for this card. So, I broke down the statistics for the mage spells, because that's what you'll be getting from this card is one mage spell with its battle cry. So, the chances that you get one particular card that you need from Babbling Book is only a 3% chance, since there are 29 mage spells. However, I broke down all the spells into other categories, so if you're looking for a certain type of spell, you'll know what the chances are that you'll get that kind of spell. So, in general, removal spells, which are spells that remove a minion with a transformation, damage dealing, or AoE, or destroy text effect. You have about a 60% chance to get that removal spell. And that's great. That means that, for the most part, if your opponent has a board, you'll be able to get something from Babbling Book that will help get rid of it. And now let's say there's only one minion on board and it's pretty big. The chances that you'll get a single target removal are also pretty high at about 40%. So that means that that 40% doesn't include area of effect cards like Flame Strike, Arcane Explosion, and Blizzard. Now, for direct damage, you only have about a 25% chance of getting that direct damage. So something like Frostbolt or Fireball that can either target a minion or your opponent's life total. You only have about a 25% chance of getting something like that. So it's not as high, but it's still in the mix, you know? You still have a pretty good shot of getting that. We start to get low when we're looking for area of effect cards, like Arcane Explosion, a Blizzard, or Flame Strike. So this card might not be the best against Zoo decks, since it's not as reliable at getting those type of cards. Card draw effects, you only have a 7% chance to get another card that'll draw you something. However, at the same time, maybe you don't even want to draw from your deck. With Babbling Book, this is supposed to be generating the value for you. So you're really, when you play Babbling Book, you're not exactly going to be looking for the card draw, so I don't think that this is necessarily a downside. And even if you do get a card draw effect, which is Arcane Intellect or Kabbalist Tome, even then, those cards are still pretty good and can be good in the control matchup if you're getting lower on resources. Now, you have about a 21% chance to get secrets, and the reason why secrets are good to get from Babbling Book is because it forces your opponent to play around something that they normally wouldn't. So you might be able to get a Spellbender that protects one of your bigger minions from a Warrior Shield Slam. You might be able to get a Mirror Entity that will make it so when your opponent plays Alexstrasza, you get an 8/8. So it forces your opponent to play around everything, essentially. And can make your opponent even waste resources that they normally wouldn't. Now, you have about a 17% chance to get minion cards, which are cards like Mirror Entity, Effigy. I included Mirror Image on this, even though Mirror Image only gives you 2/0/2 with Taunt. Still, if you're just looking to get minions on the board, you have about a 17% chance of getting that. And then in the last categories, I decided to split up the mage spells into two separate categories, but some of them overlap a little bit, and I'll explain that real briefly. So proactive cards are cards that you can play ahead on board. So like, let's say you already have a minion on board and your opponent doesn't have any. You don't really need a board clear, so cards like Flame Strike and Blizzard aren't considered to be proactive. However, a card like Mirror Entity can be played on your turn regardless if your opponent has a board or not, and is a more proactive approach to the game. Whereas reactive are spells that you play when you're behind on board. So if you're playing a Zoo player that has a lot of minions on the board, you're probably going to be looking for a more reactive spell that you'll be playing to either remove minions or generally just try to get that tempo swing back in your favor. So there are cards that fit both of these niches, kind of like Pyroblast that can be used if you are extremely far behind and you really need to remove a big minion. You can Pyroblast it down, or you can play it proactively and set up lethal where you'll be using the Pyroblast to finish off your opponent's life total. So overall, this card has a very interesting stat distribution of getting removal more often than not, and also getting reactive cards. So this card can be very good to play from behind. Now, one of the things that I noticed is that it's a battle cry. So what happens when you play this with Brand? How would that affect the different stats? Well, that would affect the stats as follows. So to get one particular card, you still only have about a 7% chance of getting it, so it's not the best. However, removal jumps up to 83%. So a good amount of the time, you're just going to get the removal that you need. You could get anything from Polymorph Boar to Polymorph to Flame Lance. You're going to get something that really helps you. And you can also see that in the reactive cards category, you have an 88% chance to get something that you can play from behind that can help give you an advantage. And you also even get a 66% chance to get something that you can play proactively, either to help set up lethal or to advance your position on the board. You also have about a 40% chance to get some sort of secret that your opponent is also forced to play around, and almost a 50% chance, well, 42%, to get direct damage to finish off your opponent. So Bran is really good with this card, and I think in control matchups, you're going to be holding on to your Babbling Books until you can combo them with Brand and get a lot of value out of that. I'm very excited to try this out, especially in a Reno Mage deck, which I always have a blast playing. But I just think that this combo is really cool. I also think the card has a lot of arena potential, because looking at Babbling Book, to look at the average stats, generally you're going to get a 3-cost card. The median, mode, and average are all essentially 3. And the average arena value from the card is about a 5.1 on the card that you get from Babbling Book. So that means that out of all 29 mage spells, I took the arena value of the card on a scale of 1 to 10 instead of 0 to 100. Because this is slightly my opinion, and I took estimates from Trump, arenavalue.com, and heartharena.com, and kind of came up with these numbers based on different types of reviews. So while this isn't the most official source of value, I still think that this is a pretty accurate representation that you're going to be getting around like a pretty average arena value card from Babbling Book. However, at the same time, if you happen to get that Flame Strike from Babbling Book and you're behind on board, you are going to win that arena game. So I think that that's going to be amazing. And I think in general, the cards that you're going to be able to get from Babbling Book are going to be cards that you can play from behind. And I think that's very important to consider when playing both Constructed and Arena. So overall, I'll let the stats speak for themselves, but I am very excited for this card. I hope you all are too. Let me know what card statistics you want to see in the next episode of Hearthstats, and ask any unanswered questions in the comment section below. This has been Hearthstats Heroes of RNG with Doom Bandit, and I will see you guys next time.